good to see you again, my friend, twice in 1 month. We were in Avamed San Diego not too long ago, and now we're at TCT,
Well, great to see you as well, Joe.
always. And I've seen you've been busy as heck, people chasing you down with Lungpacer at a TCT event. Now, those who are in the know understand Lungpacer and the category originally it was created for, but tell me about the crossover into the cardiology space.
Absolutely. So the innovation really started looking at how to get patients off mechanical ventilators faster. And we know that one of the unsolved problems is really diaphragm muscle atrophy. So these patients lose up to 50% of their muscle mass in just a couple of days. And so when it's time for them to breathe on their own, they don't have the strength and the ability to have the endurance to sustain that breathing without the ventilator's help. So originally, when we started the business, we were single-minded focus to strengthen that muscle for these patients, ideally to help them get off the ventilator. Now we know that it certainly does that, increases the number of patients and shortens the time on their ventilation by 3 days. We then started to take a look at, Joe, could we use this earlier when a patient's on a ventilator, and could we help mitigate that diaphragm muscle atrophy? And then we also know that the lungs don't fill properly from a ventilator, so we thought that if we use the device with every breath from the ventilator, we might be able to help the lungs fill a little bit more uniformly. So we've done a series of studies with the device, and besides now seeing that we can actually strengthen a muscle and prevent it maybe from losing its strength, we found that there's some interesting cardiac effects that happen in these patients.
So are you able to divulge some of the cardiac effects that declare themselves for these patients?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what I didn't know initially when we started this work was that the diaphragm muscle actually helps preload blood to the heart. So when a patient's on a ventilator and the muscle is quiet, maybe due to sedation or because the patient's so weak, the body's missing that extra pump. It's essentially a pulmonary pump, but it helps push blood back to the heart. So the heart has to do all that extra work. In addition, when a patient's on a ventilator, the pressure from the ventilator within the lungs compresses those blood vessels that are in the lungs, making it harder for the blood to circulate through the lungs. So that affects the afterload. So what was really exciting is in our first couple of patients in a feasibility study, we discovered that by pacing the diaphragm with every breath from a ventilator, we could increase the preload and reduce the afterload resistance, and in effect increase cardiac output and cardiac index for a ventilated patient.
Wow, the number of technologies that you can go back to. Intuitive started with the heart and ended up on the the prostate, right? So you're clearly hitting your target with Lungpacer on the initial intention and targeting, but now finding these alternative markets that are as large or potentially bigger has to be a benefit.
It's really exciting for us. We know we're going to make a difference for patients with our approved AeroPace device, and then it's even more exciting to see what we hope to achieve with the AeroNova device, which is currently investigational. We're in our phase 2 study, but we've got now 2 previous clinical studies that show this evidence where we can provide this benefit not only to the diaphragm but also for cardiac output for those individuals.
And so that patient population, what would it look like, Doug? Is it exclusively those who are on ventilators for this category? Is there other patient population outside of that?
Well, we're going to start with patients that are on ventilator because we definitely will have a significant impact. We can mitigate the negative effects from the ventilator pressure, which creates essentially a resistance to output for the heart. But we know that contracting the diaphragm does help preload. So there's certainly a number of patients who are not on a ventilator where we expect we'll be able to show that assist for a preload will be very helpful for them. And that's going to be part of our phase 3 study plan for this investigational device.
And that's probably of high interest without mentioning any of them, to a couple of the big players on this floor here as we scan out over the floor.
It certainly will be. The heart failure population and many of these individuals that come into the hospital, struggling with cardiac output, they can be helped in so many different ways. Mechanical therapies are certainly providing a lot of benefit for these individuals, but it may not be suitable for all. They also come with certain complications and added risks. We bring a device that doesn't affect the blood. It doesn't hemolysis the blood at all. It's a very low crossing profile, no moving parts. All it does is activate a pump we already have in our body, which is our diaphragm muscle. And so we're hopeful that, for some patients it can be a bridge, perhaps, to getting them more stable, or it can be something that could also be added to some of the existing therapies that we're using to try to help these patients.
And relatively less invasive than other current standard or therapeutic heart failure.
That's exactly right, yes. Some of the devices that are out there today, they're a fairly large crossing profile. There are bleeding complications that happen often. We know there's a high risk of kidney injury, and then hemolysis, which is where a mechanical system is actually churning, perhaps affecting blood cell integrity. What we know is we have a very small crossing profile of our device. It's placed on the venous system, not on the arterial system. And besides the data that we have on cardiac output, it also looks like we improve kidney health based upon some of our clinical work today. So it sort of, I think, will work against some of those complications that we see with today's devices.
So as we look out 12 to 24 months from now for the cardiac application, what would be ideal for Lungpacer and for future patients?
So ideally for us is that we'll be underway with our phase 3 study for the Aeronova product, and hopefully approaching the point where we can bring that therapy to the market to help these individuals.
Awesome. Well, we'll be watching it closely, my friend, with the other applications as well.
Thank you, Joe. Great to see you, as always. Yeah.
I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of TCT 2025 San Francisco. Be well.